Hi, welcome to Destination Abroad. On this channel, we talk to people about their experiences working and living abroad. So if you are interested, then have a look. Feel free to subscribe and give us a like. Thank you. And today we talk to Peter Mátai, who is right now in Switzerland, but he has been traveling to other places before. So I'm going to ask him about his experiences. Hi there.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Where are you? How you got there? A little bit of an introduction.
Sure, yes. So at the moment I live in Switzerland, but this is not my first country. My journey started about 15 years ago when I went to the United States to work in summer jobs. There were programs for the students to go there for 3-4 months in the summertime to practice English, meet people, earn a bit of money, and obviously see the world. That was pretty much my first experience. And since then, in every year or every few years, I go somewhere. So I went back to the US 3 times. After that, I went to Ireland a little bit. And then a few years later, I got my first professional job after I finished the university in Scotland. I worked on a project for a couple of years. And then I moved home, got married, got kids, and now we decided with the family together to come to Switzerland. So this is a different challenge now.
Wow, that sounds like an exciting and almost perfect life. When you went to America, how old were you? You said you went with the university, right?
Yes, so I was a student. I was like about 20 years old. And at that time, it was in 2006, I think, maybe even more. It was fairly new to the people to go to the United States. I didn't know many people who were going to the United States. Actually, I pretty much knew my brother. He was the only one who I knew who went to the United States a few years earlier, and it wasn't common at that time. But then we were having a few beers with some of our friends, and we said, let's try it. So we found an agency, and that agency was specialized to bring students to the United States for summer jobs. And actually it was beneficial for everyone. It was good for the United States and the local companies because they got cheap resources. It was good for us because without this program, it was almost impossible to get there. Otherwise, it would cost a lot of money, and we didn't have a lot of money at that time. And of course, it was good for this company because then they were able to build this huge network and help to the people. So that's how it all started.
Wow. I remember I did try to go to America around the early 2000s, and the visa application process was quite long, and most of the time you wouldn't get a visa anyway. So this seems like a good way to do it. And
yeah, I mean, it had been changed a lot. So what was there 15 years ago, 5 years ago, or even last year? It's different today. So whoever want to go to the United States, obviously check the latest application process. But what I can tell is that to get to the United States now as a tourist is fairly easy. But to find a job and get a visa, a working visa, that's still fairly hard. So there is the easy way and the hard way. The hard way is to either find a company or find a support or anything like that would help you to get a visa. Or I also know some people who just decided to stay with a tourist visa because there are many people there who stay there in a semi-illegal status. Some stay there for a lifetime, and it works there. I don't support that. I don't suggest that to anyone. But if there is no other choice, or if you really want to go there, that's also a consideration.
yeah, there are many ways. I heard many stories as well. And so when you went there at that time, what would you say? What was your English level? Did you speak English well?
No, not at all. I mean, my English level was, I think I learned 2 years in a high school or something like that. It was very, very, very low, and that was actually a really good way to improve my English, because we went there and we were working in a fast food restaurant. I was working as a cashier. So basically, I was talking to people for 8 hours a day, sometimes 10 hours a day, right? And in the first month or so, or the first few weeks, I didn't understand half of what they are saying. So they ordered this, I gave them that. They ordered something, I gave them a completely different product. So it was challenging. It was a bit hard, and I was really tired after the working hours. But that pushed me really over the line to make sure that yes, I need to learn the language. But I have to say, I didn't learn everything, because each job and each specific area has its own words. So I learned 50 words. I was working in a donut shop. I learned 50 words about donuts, but obviously that's not really reusable everywhere. So it's a good way to start. And I think what was really important for me is I learned how to understand people, because I know many people who were sitting in a classroom and learned the language and understand the grammars, but when they start to speak, the biggest issue is they don't understand what the other party is saying. So anything what you would do and go abroad and spend a month, 2 months, 3 months abroad, that increase the level of understanding amazingly.
Yeah, I agree. Did you have time to look around there while you were there, or did you have to work too much? Or too tired?
Well, it's you need to find a balance. I mean, for us, we had two main targets for the summer. I think most of the people who go there have the same kind of approach, that you work during the summer very hard, and at the end of the season, you go for a trip, a 2, 3, 4 week trip. And of course, in between, if you have time, you can go and visit other places. But it was mostly in most weeks we worked in 6 days, and we had one day off. So on that one day, we went for shopping, because everything is so cheap there, and or we went to visit Washington D.C., for example. But during the summer, it was fairly limited. But as soon as we finished the work, we went for trips. So we spent a few weeks in California. We spent a few weeks in Florida. Then we spent a few weeks up in New York and Niagara Falls and that area. So I spent there 3 summers. So basically, after each summer, we had a long holiday. And of course, because we were working for 3 months constantly, we also saved a lot of money.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Um, so after you came back, what did you feel? Did you feel like, oh my God, I want to go back, or that was enough, I want something else?
Well, that was straight the first thing what we started to discuss with our friends after the first summer. And that's why we went back the second time, and that's why we went back the third time. So as soon as we started this, it got into our veins, and that was part of our life. So we didn't want to stay in one single location, especially at that time. We had no families, no kids, nothing to slow us down. We were young. We wanted to discover the world. So it was actually a very good way to do that, because we rented a place where we were able to discover and see and enjoy a completely different world. But in the same time, we earned enough money to spend in other travels during the year. And then next year we went back, next year we went back. But basically, in my third year, I actually didn't go straight to the United States. I went on the other way. So instead of traveling to the west, we started to go to the east. So basically, we said, we're going to earn money anyway. So let's pre-spend it before we even get to the United States. So we went to Russia, we took the Trans-Siberian train, spent a few weeks in Asia, and then we went to the US. The problem was that I actually spent more than I was planning to do that in that trip. So by the end of the summer in the US, I didn't have as much money as I was expected. So then I had to make a decision, okay, what would I do? I was still a student. I still had a couple of months before the exam started. So I looked around. I checked my friends, where they live, and I asked them, in different countries, what are the possibilities to find a job, and what kind of job can I find. I need money. That was my main target. So I talked to different friends, and there was one friend in Dublin who said, yes, please come, it's very easy to find a job, and you can stay with me for free, let's give it a try. So I booked a ticket there, and that's how I ended up in Ireland for 2 months.
Wow. Yeah, that's really brave and really cool, actually. What did you do in Ireland, if I can ask?
Well, in Ireland, my main principle was to earn money. So I applied for every job, what I found. I applied for restaurants, for cleaning. I applied for everything. But basically, I didn't have any experience. I didn't have any paperwork. I didn't have anything there. So I have to say it wasn't easy in the beginning, because to find a job in Europe, it's completely different than in the United States. In the United States, they would even hire you if you don't have a proper visa, because they don't really care. You can have a bank account, you can have a credit card, you can have everything without a visa. Now in Europe, that's completely different. Even if we are part of the EU, you need to have papers like social security number and work permit and things like that. And it's a crazy cycle, because to go to get a work permit, you need to get a social security number. To get a social security number, you need to get a bank account. To get a bank account, you need the other two. So basically, it's really hard to get into the system. And I found that almost impossible. And officially, I don't know how to do that. But I think if you want, you can find a way. And basically what I did, my friend helped to another friend who knows someone, and they basically signed me up to their flat as a tenant, and basically that helped me to get into the system, and that started the whole change. So I was able to get all the paperwork, but without this help, I don't know how you can achieve that. In terms of work, in 1 week I already had 2 jobs and 1 more job offer. All of them were in restaurants or kitchen works, things like that. So I started to work in 2 places, and I rejected the 3rd one. But basically, that was more than enough for me, and it was fairly easy to find a job, but to get through the paperwork, it was really hard. And I wanted to save as much money as I can, so I didn't want to stay with my friends for 2 months or 3 months. I didn't even know how long I'm going to stay. So after like a month, I said, okay, thank you very much. I'm going to rent a place for myself. I had enough money to rent a room. But then I wanted to make money. So basically, I rented further my room for another guy. So I said, yeah, this is a big room for 2. If you, chip into the rental, then I can make more money. And then I basically illegally rented out the room for another guy who came in. And I think his story is telling that it's not that easy, because that guy came and he had also big plans. He's gonna stay there, he's gonna find a job, he's gonna do everything. And basically after a week, and when I went back from the work, he was gone. And there was a message on the bed that this is not what he expected. It's really hard. He has issues with the language. He has issues with the paperwork. He doesn't know what to do. So basically, after a week, he gave up. So just because I was able to do that, or some people are able to do that, that doesn't mean it's very easy and it's coming straightforward. You actually have to push really hard to get through these barriers in the beginning, even in the EU.
Yes, yeah, I remember my first time. I lived in England, and I had to ask my friends as well to put my name on their address so I can get a letter, so I can go to the bank. And I had this check for a job I did, but I couldn't cash it because I had no paper, so I had to wait 2 weeks to get paid, to cash the check. So I know it's not that simple.
And that's actually a very good point, that people expect to find a job and get paid immediately. But if you think about that, if you go to a different country, let's say in the first 2-3 weeks, you just search. Let's say you find a job, that's already, I think, luck if you find something in the first 2-3 weeks. But then your first paycheck at least gonna take 2 weeks. So you need to live from your own savings for about 1 or 2 months, which can easily go up to several thousands of euros. And I think many people don't count on that expense in the beginning. It's an investment. You have to invest into yourself. And if you don't have that money, it's really hard to get started.
Yes, indeed. And also, if you rent anywhere, you have to pay for your rent in advance, plus the deposit. Yeah, yeah, and which can be 6 weeks. It doesn't have to be, 1 month. Sometimes they ask for 6 weeks. Sometimes they ask for more. It depends on where you rent it from.
Yeah, without jumping ahead in the story, in the timeline, just saying that at the moment when I rented my flat here in Switzerland, I had to pay, I think, about 9,000 francs, 8,000 francs ahead. So that's what, like 2.5 million forints.
Oh my God, that's a lot of money.
Yes.
Wow. So you really have to have some savings before you go to work abroad in Europe, at least.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And is it safe to say you didn't have any professional experience before you started working in Ireland?
Well, at that time I was still a student, so I didn't really care what I'm doing, and actually I was working in a restaurant of a multinational company, and actually there were some Hungarians who were working in the office as professionals, and I have to say I was really jealous because they were working in the office and I was working in the kitchen. Probably they earned 10 times more than me. They had a great lifestyle. And I was a bit jealous, but those guys were like 10, 15 years older than me at that time. So I knew that sooner or later I'm going to get there. And actually, that was my next step or next challenge in my life, that after I finished the university, I started to work for a multinational company in Budapest, and they had a project in Scotland, and they had a huge implementation project, and I applied for that project without knowing much about Scotland. I didn't know a lot. I mean, yeah, it's somewhere up there in Europe. It's cold and always raining. That's pretty much I knew about Scotland, and I didn't expect that I'm gonna be hired. So at that time, my girlfriend, who is my wife now, I vaguely mentioned to her that okay, I have this opportunity. I'm gonna apply, but they will not hire me anyway. Fine. Okay, go ahead. And then a few weeks later, I phoned her and I was saying, "Hey, honey, they hired me, so we are moving to Scotland." So she didn't expect that. Obviously, she had a job, she had her own plans for the future. So that was a completely different challenge. That okay, now I have a relationship and I have a professional experience abroad. How can I manage both of them together to make sure they work? Because I didn't want to sacrifice any of them. But if I have to choose, then of course, that's an issue for me. So I was looking for a way to make sure I can keep both of them.
And what was the way? Was she willing to move to Scotland with you, or did she not want to do that?
She was, and actually eventually she came. And I think it's really important when you want to do this long term, like I think this is part of our lifestyle. I was doing this alone with my girlfriend, wife, and now with the family. I think this is part of our lifetime. And if you want to do that, you need to find a partner who supports that. Otherwise, that relationship won't end, or you would need to choose. Now, I knew my wife always want to also come and discover the world, so that was never an issue. The challenge was practically how to do this. So basically, what we did is I moved to Scotland alone, and then I said, okay, let's see how it goes, because if they fire me in the first week because they realize I'm not the right candidate, or if I don't like it, I want to quit, maybe in 2-3 months time I'm going to come home, so don't quit yet. And Scotland is not far away, so I was coming home in every week or every 2 weeks. Sometimes she came to me. So I think some people are doing that even within the same city or the same country, that they only meet on the weekend. So that wasn't a big issue. But after 2-3 months time, we said, okay, this is working and I'm going to stay here for longer. So now we need to make a decision. So she quit her job and she came to Scotland, and she was, living with me. And that was also a big challenge for us, because I was working, I was meeting people, I had a social life, I was, having a laugh, and it was great for me. Why for her, she didn't have a job, she didn't have friends, she didn't meet anyone. She was basically waiting for me to get home after work. And this is really frustrating situation, because it's not good for anyone. So she started to find a job, and she was started to looking for opportunities. But she said that she doesn't want to work any kind of job. She said, I'm only going to do my professional, or at least something very close to that, or I'm not working, which is reasonable, her choice, right? And it took her about 6 to 8 months to get her first paycheck, because she found a job as a volunteer. Now, after that, she found a job as a like a clerk or an analyst or something like that. But she was still unpaid. And then after 6 months, more than 6 months, was when they hired her for a paid job. And if you don't have a support, if you don't know where to live, if you don't have another income, 6 months, 8 months is a really, really long period of time financially. And of course, I had a flat. It was rented by the company, so she was living there. My salary was high enough to cover all the expenses. But if that wouldn't be there, it would be almost impossible for her to find anything, any sort of job. For example, to open a bank account for her was a nightmare, because she wasn't working in the country officially. She just, jumped on a plane, came to Scotland, and she was there with me. We went to the bank, and of course, the first thing what they say, okay, where is your social security number? Where is your working permit? Or any sorts of, they call it proof of address, to say you live on this address. But officially, I was renting the flat. I was the only tenant in that flat. So we had to find all sorts of crazy ways to put her on the paper and make sure that she can get into the system. And it was even more frustrating that, we went to the bank and they said that, sorry, you are not allowed to open a bank account. So she got to voice all the time for the first 3-4 months. And she is also like me, that she didn't give up. But I can imagine that many people would say, that's fine, I don't want to deal with this, I just go somewhere else or go home. So going abroad is not easy, especially the first period. It has the pros and cons, but we are doing that because we think it has more pros than cons. You see the world, you meet people, you socialize differently, and of course, money-wise, it's a completely different story as well.
Yeah, and you discover new things. You not just places, but food and what other people do. Like in Scotland, they probably have different hobbies or different free time activities than in Hungary.
They drink a lot.
yeah, maybe there is something else apart from that, I don't know. But I remember when I was in England, we had to put a bill under someone's name. This is how we got the proof of address. So for example, I paid for water, my flatmate paid for electricity, and the third person paid for Wi-Fi, let's say. So we had to register these things under our names, but this is not that easy sometimes either.
Yeah, it's not that easy. And also the deposit. I remember that in Scotland, because they said that you are new to the country, you don't have any history. In many countries, they only care what you do in that country. You might be a CEO of the best company ever. If you go to certain countries, they say that's outside of our territory. We don't care, right? And basically, that's what happened in the UK for us as well, in Scotland. That they said that you don't have any history here, so you have to pay 6 months of deposit for the rental. And
6 months.
I didn't have that money, and the flat was rented by the company, so they paid directly. But they said you have to pay 6 months. But of course, I used my company credit card, and for the companies, it was pennies. They don't care. But if you are an individual, 6 months is, I would say, almost impossible to pay down in front.
Yeah, normally you go abroad to get a job that pays better. So obviously you don't have a lot of money lying around, yet alone 6 months worth of rent or anything like that. That's a lot. That's ridiculous.
Yes, it was too much.
Yeah. How long did you stay in Scotland?
So in Scotland, I was there for about 2 years, 2.5 years, and even after that, when we came back to Hungary, I was doing the same job. So location-wise, maybe we were living in Budapest, but I was traveling around Europe and around the world because I was working on this implementation project, which was great at that time. I really enjoyed to be in that position. When I was young, I always imagined when I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna find a professional job, I'm gonna jump on a plane with a suitcase on Monday and go to a different country and join meetings and just go to restaurants with colleagues and it's all covered by the company. I was really waiting to get to that position, and this position was exactly like that. And I really enjoyed that for about 2 years. But of course, to travel on a regular basis, go from country to country, every second week a different country, a different hotel, it was a bit of overwhelming and tiring. So I had enough. So this was one of the main reasons why we eventually wanted to get back to Hungary and stop doing this job and find something else which is more local. So that was our next step in the journey. So we went home and got married and got kids. So we wanted to do that in Hungary for sure.
Yeah, so what seems very exciting at the beginning might get a bit tiring later. I've done that, been there, done that. Can I ask, so what's your occupation? What did you study to be able to do these kind of jobs?
I studied economics, and now I work with an application called SAP. I used to be an SAP consultant, so it's pretty much the job, which means you have to travel all the time and go to different places. But I think if you want to do something similar and you want to travel with the job and you want to find jobs in different countries, I think it's very important what you said, that you need to find the right profession. Because if you are a Hungarian grammar teacher, it's unlikely that they want to hire you in many countries. But if you have a globalized position, a globalized profession, like IT or IS or economics or consultancy or something like that, then I think it's very easy to go from country to country. Actually, I have to say that sometimes I even feel that there's a pressure that I could go into 100+ countries in a month and I'm going to find a job there because luckily I have a fairly successful career. So I could jump on the search pages and find a job in any countries, which is also a pressure because now I have too many choices. And sometimes I receive job opportunities in Eastern Europe, in Canada, in Asia, in different countries, and it's really hard to decide which one is worth to go and which one is something what you should forget.
Yes, and now you have your family to think about as well. So
Yes, yes. Now we have two kids, two boys, and they are still in a very young age. And the big one is about 5, the small one is almost 2. But we wanted to find before they were born, we wanted to find a way to bring them to a different country and show them how people live in different countries. Um, I think we're always going to go back to Hungary. That's always the plan because we we have all the friends, the families. Socially, we belong there, and we never wanted to move away completely. But I think, and this is my approach, is short or long period of times helps a lot, and you can focus on the pros in the short period, and you can forget about all the cons basically, because you can work around those cons in the short term. But of course, if you move to a country for 20, 30, 50 years, you have to deal with the pros and the cons in the same time. So I think this was our approach previously, and I think this is gonna be our approach in the future as well. That maximum a few years we go somewhere, but then our base would be in back to Budapest, because I think that's a great city. I have to say I love Budapest, and even if I think if I wouldn't be a Hungarian, I would still love Budapest because it's such a great place, and I would like to live there anyway. But now, if I add that I have friends, I have all the friends there, my language is there, I know a lot of people there, I socialize there. That's even better for us.
yeah. I know what you mean. Actually, I was going to ask, how did the kids react to this change of location? Because I remember as a young adult, or even now, I get really excited to go somewhere. As you said, if you go for a short term, the excitement doesn't die out that quickly, and then you can enjoy it more and don't have to deal with the problems that come with a long term stay. So for adults, it's a little bit different. How do the kids react to this?
Yeah, that's a completely different story. And we went through this journey already a few times, so we knew what to expect. And we wanted to share this experience with our kids. We were talking about what they can expect, what's going to happen. They're gonna speak different languages. All of your friends gonna stay here in Hungary. You will not meet them. You will go to a different school, a different kindergarten. But they are so young that they don't understand it. Basically, we were telling them for months. We talked to different people, and the suggestion was that uh, talk to them openly. Talk to them openly about what's going to happen. Don't underestimate how much they understand, and prepare them for the change. But when I was telling to my son that, okay, I got an opportunity in Switzerland, we're gonna move there, and we're gonna live there, he was saying, okay, fine, daddy, we're gonna move there, we're gonna live there, and I'm gonna go to the same kindergarten in Switzerland with the same friends and the same teacher and everything. And I was saying, no, that will not happen. But he just couldn't imagine the a new kindergarten, because for him there's only one kindergarten, right? Even if I go to a different country, I have only one kindergarten. So they are in the completely different mindset, and they look at the words completely differently. So I think it was a bit of shock for especially the big one. Um, Probably not even in the first few weeks, because the first few weeks was like a holiday. So we came in summer, and we live in Lausanne now, which is next to the Lake Geneva, and we live 5 minutes from the lake. So we went there every day, have barbecues, and have a bath and play at the beach. So it was almost like a holiday, except that I was working during the day. But after a few weeks, when this became the norm, I think that was when they realized that, okay, now we are going to stay here. Plus, the second frustration period was when they actually started to go to the school, because my bigger son, he goes to school and he doesn't speak the language, which is also a big challenge, that he has to go to a place and they speak to him in a language that he doesn't understand a single word about what they are saying. Um, I don't know what is the right approach in that period. We just paid extra attention and extra care, and we started to help him. And I think you just have to get through that. I mean, you have to get through the first weeks. I talked to different people. Most of them said that the first 3 months, starting from the school day, first 3 months is the most challenging period. We are over that. So now for us, everything is great. My son has already friends in the school. He's talking about only the new friends, because previously he was talking about the old friends all the time. Like, he's doing this, she's doing that. Now he's only talking about the new friends. And in the same time, he learned the language a lot. I think he speaks like 10 times better than me already in French. I also learned that the kids learn really, really fast. And in this age, before, I don't know, age 7, 8, 9, whatever, they also learn the pronunciation great, because that's that period when they still form their own languages. So his pronunciation is just amazing. Sometimes we are just sitting home and I'm like, son, say something in French because it sounds so nice. So I think he's gonna benefit, even if he doesn't understand this yet. I think he's gonna benefit this in 10, 15 years. That we want to stay here in Switzerland for at least for a few years. We don't know the end state, but even if we stay only for a few years, he's gonna learn the language fluently. So he's gonna be how they say that,
bilingual.
Yes, exactly. While my small kid, the small one, is, when we came, he was about 1 year old. So he didn't have a clue where we are. As long as daddy and mommy are there, everything is fine. And now when he's gonna turn 2 in this summer, I think we need to find a place for him as well, when he can also learn the language. So for him, he doesn't have any comparison what was there before or after. This is the norm for him. So he's gonna get into this situation even more earlier. So I think with him, we have a much more easier life than with the big one, because the big one had history already with friends,
Yeah.
and the Hungarian kindergarten system. So you really need to find a way, first of all, when you want to do that, at what age. Is it school already? Is it kindergarten already? I think if you go too early, but that's my view, if you go too early, then it's still challenging. If you go with a 1 to 3 months old baby, you still have no idea where you are, even in your own flat. So I would say it's a bit early. If you go in age, I don't know, 15, the kids already have friends and they socialize. Maybe they have boyfriends, girlfriends. They might not want to go. So I think this is actually one of the reasons why I accepted this position, that I think this is the right time for us. They are not in school yet, but they are old enough to be able to get around, and we don't have to suffer the sleepless nights through months and years. So I think we came in more or less in the right time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I guess this little one is probably way too little to comprehend what's happening. One last question is probably my personal interest. I heard that Switzerland is quite expensive to live in. Is that true?
It's even more expensive than you heard. It's crazy expensive. I heard stories that Switzerland is expensive. Now, when we came, we were shocked. Really, it's crazy expensive. But of course, the salaries are higher. So you cannot just look at the expenses without the salaries. But I think what is important is that you need to decide what you want to do, because for us, we know that most likely we don't want to live here for our whole life, right? We don't know for how long, at least a few years, but we don't think we're gonna stay here for our whole life, as the reasons what I mentioned earlier. That's why we are still looking at the prices, and we are still trying to see what makes sense to spend on and what doesn't. And there are things which are equally, how to say, so percentage wise, they cost the same here as, for example, in Hungary. So you spend, I don't know, 30% of your salary on accommodation, you spend the same percentage on a beer or whatever. But there are certain things which are 10, 15, 20 times more expensive than in Hungary. So, for example, go to a dentist, any sorts of services, any sort of sport event, have a massage, even go to a restaurant. It's much, much, much more expensive, even percentage-wise, than in Hungary. So actually, in Hungary, I had a very good salary. We were able to go to restaurants on a regular basis, order pizza, for example. Now we came to Switzerland, and I think we went to a restaurant twice in the last 8 months. We didn't order any food online because it's just so much more expensive percentage-wise. Not even mention the accommodations or really any sort of services. For example, we wanted to connect our washing machine into the flat, because also we didn't talk about that, but also when you go to different countries, there are all sorts of different rules, even socially or economically or politically. There are different rules how people live their life, right? And in Switzerland, people wash in the basement. So usually you don't have a washing machine in your flat. You need to go to the basement, and there's a schedule, and they say that you can wash every Tuesday from 9 till lunchtime. So first of all, I don't understand how people do that, because then you need to take a day off or something to.
When do they work?
Or actually, the system here in Switzerland is that women stay home and the men are working. It's a really old-fashioned structure, and we said we don't want to do that. Because we have small kids, we want to connect our washing machine into the flat. Now we try to find a service guy. We found one, and he said that okay, he can connect. It's not a buy. We didn't want him to buy a new one, just to connect our old one. So basically, put two holes together and add it to the tap. He said 1,000 francs. Now the washing machine costed about 600. So basically, he said for a 2-hour job, he wants 1,000 francs. And we said, okay, that's a bit too much. So then he said, okay, 800. And then we were able to push it down to 500. But then at that time, he was almost mad at us, that how can we expect that he will come for 500 francs to connect. Just he was doing because we asked through a friend, and she knew that guy. But normally,
so he made you was a favor.
Yes. So normally, these kind of stuff are really, really, really expensive. But of course, salaries are higher. So even if you add everything together, all the expenses, if you compare to the salaries, we got more money at the end of the month. But yes, it's really expensive.
Well, I know you have to go, so I'm not going to ask you any more questions, although I have a lot more now. But thank you so much for talking to us, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thanks for the opportunity. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.